My life was with Windows 95. I was like 10 years old when it get released, and it's just like reminds of the happy, more simple times.
And this Windows 95 energy is what he spent his adult life channeling into his art.
Super daddies, like offbeat dancing. I love it, like totally what I'm doing with my art. Things doesn't need to be perfect, and you can be yourself.
And running on the average personal computer back then, Windows 95 was often less than perfect. Microsoft had an answer for that.
Ctrl, Alt, and Delete.
It's a reboot.
It's a reboot.
And do you remember Windows 95 requiring the odd reboot?
A lot of reboots is the way I remember it.
Yeah, three-finger salute. So you got Ctrl, Alt, and Delete. That got you started again.
We still have it today.
We still have it today, yeah. There's no point changing it. Everybody knows what it is, so.
Windows 95 brought computing to the masses and the masses to the internet. And who could have predicted it would end up here? Jane McCubbin, BBC News.
We're joined now by retro tech expert and YouTuber Peter Lee, also known as Nostalgia Nerd.
Hello.
Good morning to
Morning.
you. What do you personally remember of the launch of Windows 95?
I mean, Windows 95 for me was just a huge thing. I was only about 11 years old or something, but it felt like a life-changing moment. It felt like I needed that software in order to survive.
What was life like? Because we were talking about this in the office, and what was life like on computers before Windows 95? Like, what did we use them for?
So we kind of used them for the same stuff, for work, for games, leisure. But before Windows 95, we used Microsoft DOS mainly, which was like a command prompt-driven text-based thing. So by the time Windows 95 came out, it made everything just more accessible. It was, opened up a world to more people.
So for things like, just simple things like you could have a desktop and you'd have icons that you could click on. That was different because...
You could do that before, but it was much more easy to use, and the computer booted straight into Windows rather than going to a command prompt interface and then having to load up an older version of Windows.
You brought some bits in with you today.
I did.
Do you want to sort of talk us through what we've got here on the and this is the disk?
That's a floppy disk, yeah. That is what most software used to come on, and you put it in and install it on your computer.
That was actually the modern version of the floppy disk.
Yeah, that's why they're called floppy disks, because they were big and floppy. That's a 3.5-inch version, much smaller.
And the other bits you brought in here, just talk us through what you brought in here.
Yeah, so I've got a Apple Mac here because Apple really popularized the graphical user interface. And then Microsoft kind of took that idea and they ran with it in the 80s with Microsoft DOS, which was their original operating system. And then they moved on to Windows 95 in 1995, obviously. And it wasn't just a software change, it was a hardware change, because we got a new key on the keyboard, the Windows key, which we still use today. You press it to bring up the start menu. So.
Was this stuff, when it first came out, was this costing a lot of money? I mean, relative to what people were earning, was it one of those things where you're thinking, wow, this is a lot of money I'm spending?
I mean, I think it was about £99, so it was a fair chunk. So what we're talking about, £160 today.
Okay.
But it was, the hype around it was so immense that people had no problem spending that sort of money. They felt like it unlocked the future to them, so they just went out and bought it.
And just to delve a little deeper into what it unlocked, because I think that lots of people go, well, what could you do that you couldn't do on a computer before Windows 95?
I think it just made it more accessible. So you could do the stuff, but it was clunky, it was hard to get to places. Windows 95, you just booted straight into the operating system. You had the little start bar, which we still have today, down the bottom corner, which allowed you to access all your programs. It came with various programs you could use straight out of the box, and it allowed you to connect to the internet. It just happened to coincide with this amazing thing called the internet, and people jumped on that, because before that it was much harder to connect up.
And that was the turning point, wasn't it, in terms of knowledge, accessibility, communication?
It changed things completely, and Microsoft tried to run with that and build it directly into the operating system at one point. So you had the background was a browser at one point, so it was kind of like a whole new world, and they understood that people were excited about it.
So you know your stuff. Where does this marker about Windows 95 lie in relation to technology and the really significant moments along the way, right up to today? Where does it sit?
I mean, it's quite high just because it popularized the user interface. If you think from like 85 to 95, not much changed in computing. From 90, well, sorry, a lot changed in computing from 85 to 95 because we got that. But from 95 up until now, Windows hasn't really changed. You could give someone a copy of Windows 95 today, they could still use it. It's pretty much the same as what we use every day. So it's fairly high up.
So in technology terms, that's an extraordinary achievement, isn't it? Because normally things are, you know, almost immediately outdated, and they're improved and redundant almost.
It's comparable to, you know, Apple releasing the iPhone and making it user-friendly and accessible. Because all phones are based on the iPhone now. Everyone uses them. Before that point, they were all different types of ways you'd get into the interface.
And are there bits of kit related to this that are now worth a lot of money? Is there a kind of collector industry around some of these things?
Yeah, huge. I mean, it's maybe not so much the software, because Windows 95, there was loads of copies sold, so they're everywhere. But, you know, the old tech associated with them, the old computers, they die. So if you've got stuff in a working condition, it's, you know, it's worth a reasonable amount of money. People are paying quite a lot of money for pristine computers.
What kind of money were you talking about?
Well, if you get like a pristine, you know, desktop computer from the 90s, we're talking like 300, 400 pounds possibly.
Everybody's thinking, I'll go and check, see what I've got stuffed away in
Absolutely.
the cupboard with the old tech.
Yeah, look in the attic, see what you've got, because someone will want it.
How did Windows 95 battle with Apple Macs?
I mean,
because that was, I remember a time when you were either Apple or, you know, PC.
Yeah.
And you were a certain type, apparently you were trendy and really cool if you were Apple, and now it kind of seems to be shifting again.
So when Windows 95 came out, Apple didn't have Steve Jobs on board, so there wasn't much competition. Apple had the Mac, but it wasn't advancing fast. But Steve Jobs came back late 90s and brought out, you know, the colourful Macintoshes, and that really caught people's attention, and more people started moving over to Apple again. But mid-90s, the IBM PC compatible was really kind of leading the way.
And in terms of Windows 95, I suppose it's a credit to itself that it hasn't, that you can still use it now.
Yeah.
You know, and its evolution is still based on that. There hasn't been a massive diversion away from it.
It really hasn't. Like, so if you go into the control panel on modern versions of Windows, you can still see some parts of Windows 95 almost popping through. It was just, it changed the landscape a lot. And because it's so easy to use, there's no point changing it. Microsoft tried to with Windows 8. People didn't like it. They went back to the old formula.
Peter, nice to see you here this morning. Peter Lee, presenter, YouTuber and Twitch streamer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. We'll be back with the headlines then. Find out what's happening wherever you are.